My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by a fantastic individual. This man tore it up for the great Adelaide City. None other than three-time championship winning striker, Mr. Joe Mullen. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Sasha. Nice to be on your show, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to you.
Fantastic. Joe, tell us, how did you fall in love with our great game?
Oh, I started when I was a very young boy because my parents were 10-pound poms. They were out from England in 1971. I was only 7 years of age. And of course, we came to this great country, Australia, and everybody was kicking around the AFL ball, the egg ball, as we used to call it back then. Of course, I've got great respect for that game now. But as we came, my dad just said, no, here's a proper football, and it was a round ball. So I was one of four boys, three other brothers. My other brothers, Peter was only 9 at the time. I was 7. Phil, my other brother, was 6, and my youngest brother Timothy, he was 3. So 4 boys, 1 round soccer ball, and boy did we play. And we learned all of our football, I suppose, in the back garden, Sasha. And it was through my dad who probably gave us that first ball all those many years ago. And it's that English blood in him that led me to play this great game of ours.
So I'm sure there would have been some tussles in the Mullen household. So which of the brothers gave most stick?
Well, Peter, my oldest brother, he used to kick the hardest. He was a stopper, and he used to clean us up if ever we went past him. Phil, one of my younger brothers, he was a very smart footballer, a little bit slow. But so he was easier to get around, but he was had a speed of thought, speed of anticipation. So he had that strength. And my younger brother, Tim, actually, he was probably the best player in the family. He was speedy, quick, fast, but it was easy to get to him. Just had to poke him a little bit and he'd react. So they all had their strengths, all had their weaknesses. But all in all, we had great days growing up together, playing football for the clubs that we played for as well.
Okay. And so what was do you remember your first boyhood club?
Yeah, it was actually my school team, primary school team, that was actually a registered club. This school actually registered as a club in what is known as the Elizabeth Districts Junior Soccer Association, a big association of soccer clubs here in Adelaide, South Australia. And it was called St. Augustine's. St. Augustine's was the name of my school. And they had that school team playing in that association. So St. Augustine's, I played at St. Augustine's from age 7 until I was probably 14. Then moved to a club called Salisbury United, which was just around the corner from where we used to live. And I was there for a year. A lot of good friends that I was growing up with was playing for Salisbury United. And then Arthur Crook, the father of the late Martin Crook, Australian goalkeeper, then brought me from Salisbury and took me to a club called Para Hills, which is a federation club here, current NPL club here in South Australia. And I went there as a 15-year-old before Adelaide City bought me from them in 1982. And then I was a one club player from there, and it was Adelaide City all the way through.
That's like. Obviously, we'll get to your time at Adelaide City, but did you find yourself gravitating to the front of the pitch? I mean, obviously, you spent most of your time up high, but as a junior coming through the ranks, is that where you naturally found your greatest love for our game?
Yeah, just dribbling with the ball, taking players on, dribbling. I used to love scoring goals. That was my thing. I used to love scoring goals, and just so it's so true. I used to gravitate towards the front half of the ground, the offensive part, and my 2 brothers, my oldest brother, they used to actually gravitate towards the back. And funnily enough, they became defenders. I became a forward player and an offensive player. And I think it started with what you felt comfortable as a kid or as a junior. And mine was always just dribbling with the ball, having the ball at my feet, trying to go around trees or dustbins, whatever we were playing against in those days as we were growing up. And so I think I was made to be a striker.
Okay, yes. So obviously obviously if you score goals aplenty as a junior, then it sort of makes sense to carry on as a senior. So how old were you when you made your what you would now call your senior debut? Was it for Para Hills as a...
Yes, it was. It was for Para Hills. So Arthur Crook, like I said before, Martin Crook's father, he took me to Para Hills as a 15-year-old, and we played in the under 15s team. And then the very next year, I was put into the under 18s. Back then, Sasha, you had an under 18s competition, the reserves competition, which was an open age, and then the first team. I had 1 year in the under 18s before as a 17-year-old. Actually, I was 16 before I made my first team debut for Para Hills, and had a whole season in that first team with them. That was in 1982, and I actually won the Golden Boot that year, the old Rothman State League Division 1, they used to call it back then. But and it was Adelaide City that took me from Para Hills at the end of the 82 season to start at Adelaide City, which was fantastic.
That's hilarious. You're a baby, not old enough to vote or but you're winning goal scoring competitions. That's brilliant. Yeah. And so how did you make your way to Adelaide City? So was it as simple as they realised that you could do a job for them, but you were scoring a lot of goals for Para Hills and they needed somebody up to complement their squad?
Yeah, I think I had a very good year that year in the State League or in that Division 1 competition, scored 17 goals or something. And so I had both, there was 2 National League teams, of course, from Adelaide in the NSL then, West Adelaide Hellas and Adelaide City Juventus. And they both did speak to me and just made a decision to go to Adelaide City. Adelaide City mainly because they'd had a bit of a poor 81 and 82 season, and they were looking to rebuild. And the gentleman that got me there was the John Perrin, who was the first coach that I had at Adelaide City. John came and spoke to me, and he said he was building a young team. There was good young players there at the time. Steve Maxwell, he brought it at the same time. Myself, guy Peter Rankin, who you may remember, the three of us. Paul Schillerbeer was another young player that was there at Adelaide City at the time. And so he was building this. Also, Charlie Villani, a little bit older, 1 or 2 years older than us, and Serge Melter, 1 or 2 years older than us, but a good young team just ready to take off. So I felt that it was probably better for me around those players, and I'd have more of a chance to get a start. And at the same time, I was in Ned Scheinfeld's young Socceroo team, who was preparing to go to the 83 World Youth Cup in Mexico. And so I knew that I had to come out of the State League and into the NSL to have a hope of staying in that squad. And that's what I did.
So tell us about that experience with Scheinfeld in his camps. What was your take about how he prepared the young Socceroos?
He was very much very autocratic, and I mean that respectfully, because he was obviously a very good coach and got some terrific results out of the teams that he coached. For me, I found him very regimented, very much play only one way, and I not that I struggled to comprehend what he was saying and coaching. I certainly didn't, but it was a different way for me of playing. I suppose it was the first time, Sasha, that I had and I mean, again, this respectfully to my old coaches, but a coach who had such a regimented pattern. That came later when Zoran Matic to go to Adelaide City. We'll get to Zoran later. But it was my first taste, I dare say, of a real coach that had real disciplines, his way or the highway. And that's how I found him. So I found it unusual at the start, a little bit hard to get used to at the start. But I was in that squad for 18 months, 2 years until that Youth World Cup. and had tours, well, all over the world. We went to Mexico to the Haviland tournament before the World Cup, and had some very fond memories. And of course, his assistant was Raul Blanco,
Yes.
who you'd remember very well. And the two of them were a very good team.
Obviously different style of coaching. You've got Scheinflug, who's the very, very much he's this the shining light is on him, and Blanco, that sort of technical, more nuanced style. I think they sort of they complemented each other quite well in those camps. So firstly, who did you room with on away? Who did you gravitate first?
So in the youth team, I had a couple that Tommy McCulloch, who actually became captain of it. He was a Marconi player. I roomed with Tommy McCulloch quite a bit. I had a couple of times with a goalkeeper, believe it or not, which is Tony Franken.
Yes.
Roomed with him a bit. And there was a kid that was called Marcello Salvo. He was in the Havilands tournament to Mexico. We went for 4 weeks on this trip, and I roomed with him. And the other one I can remember very well that I roomed with was Luciano Fabrizio, a Tasmanian player that went and played a little bit in Melbourne, in Victoria, and went to the RAS in Canberra as well. So fond memories, good players.
Okay, so you're at Adelaide City now, and you've got Stevie Maxwell, who's a giant of a man. It's like he was like, you're that nice player, the ball at your feet, able to dribble, and you're quite nippy. And Steve Maxwell's just like his steam train. I think he's strong. Strong. I don't want to overestimate, but let's say 90 kilo of muscle, right? I think that's not an underestimate of where his sort of size would have been. What was that like, playing up front with such a big, strong target man next to you?
Brilliant. He was big and he was strong, but he was quick. He had that bit like the Damian Mori ilk, whereby he had very, very strong middle region and thighs and quads, and he used to have explosiveness that you just couldn't catch him, and with his strength he was very hard to beat. But it was great playing up front with Maxi. I had a lot of respect for him as a player and his strengths, and he had the same for me, and we understood each other where we had to work with each other to get the best out of each other as well. He was my roommate all the way through my Adelaide City career.
Okay.
I roomed with Maxi, and there was plenty of stories I can tell you about him, but we had a wonderful career together.
So looking back at the old, when Steve Maxwell would give, they'd all obviously pan to the characters in the side that could also give a bit of a chat. I remember this was later on, under Martich's rule, where Maxwell, more or less he's called pretty much injured. He wasn't going to play, but he's pulled up to the game and interviewed, and he more or less said, look, I'm done, but I'm out here. I'm going to play 90 minutes. I'm going to give it my all. Was he a character? He seemed like a character on camera. Was he a character behind the scenes?
Yes, he was. He was a terrific in the dressing rooms, terrific in the change rooms. He was the one that people wanted to be around, I suppose, when we went out for a drink or whatever. No, he was a social animal. Maxi was. He was definitely very much like that. But in saying that as well, very, very committed to his football, and he'd train hard. He'd play hard, but he would train hard as well. He was a sort of player, Sasha, where he's very much a confidence player, whereby all week Matic would put his arm around him, to, you're good, Max, you're this, you're that, and he'd pump him up and he'd get the best out of him. As opposed to another very good friend of mine, Paul Schillerbeer, who Zoran had to treat him the other way. He did that to Paul Schillerbeer. Then Paul Schillerbeer would just say, I'm comfortable, and he wouldn't perform at all. He had to almost abuse Paul Schillerbeer to get the best out of him, because then Schiller would say to Zoran, right, I'll show you. And that's how he'd respond. I think this is one of the best things out of Zoran as a coach.
Yeah, obviously, somebody also so humble. It was I was only having a conversation with Zoran a couple of weeks ago, and he knows so much about the game, but also just brings it down to such a simplistic way of viewing it. And let's maybe just touch on his maybe coaching methodology. From what I understand, I remember watching him when, later down his time when he was at Collingwood, and training session after training session, it would be more or less a repeat of each other.
Yeah.
Was that what it was like at Adelaide? Like the same, down the flanks, corner line, cut it back, second run, goal?
Yeah.
Was that?
Yes, it was. It was even if you brought the ball back to the middle third or even the defensive third, it was the same. Get the ball on one side and wherever the ball is. Now, if you can't go forward, right, you check, you come back and we go the other side. But this seems like so easy and basic now, but back in 86, 85, or 86, 87, 88, when he first came, it was actually a new way of playing. It was very, very, very different. And the thing is, if we were coming from the right-hand side, our left fullback knew exactly where the ball was coming, 2 passes early. So we knew, we call them today patterns of play. Yeah. And very much they were like patterns. They weren't, you didn't follow them exactly, but you knew what the rules were. You knew what the rules were when we had the ball, when it was on one side, it was tight, where we had to be, who was going to be receiving it. Yeah. And if somebody was too early on the other side to get the ball, don't stay there, just get out of there, and then somebody else would come. Very, very good coach. And I remember Les Murray describing the way Adelaide City played. It was probably in the 1987, 88 season. We'd already won the national championship in 86, but he described it in one way as the most idealistic way an Australian football team has played. Now, of course, other great teams came in those late 80s in Australia. After Leichhardt had a terrific 88 season, I think it was. It might have been 87 under Raleigh, under Rusic. And Marconi has some terrific teams. South Melbourne were wonderful as well in their own rights. But I think Zoran was ahead of his time in terms of his coaching.
And suffice to say, I mean, I don't want to be despondent about, but you think about South Melbourne and Marconi, you're talking about bank balances too, right? So what Adelaide did, and I'm only guessing, but it'd have to be on a fraction of the budget, right? A percentage of, let's not say small fraction, but a percentage of the overall budget of the likes of like what a South Melbourne, like Marconi was espousing in those times. Obviously great teams, but you guys had a core bunch of boys that just stuck together. I mean, it's unheard of, Joe, a player of your time to go through a whole career at one club. But think about it, a lot of your teammates did the same thing. They stayed there for a long time.
Never went to another club. And you're spot on. Serge Melter, Paul Shilabia, Charlie Villani, Aurelio Vidmar when he was there, Alex Tobin, Tony Vidmar, Carl Viet. You could go on. Myself. Mullen when he came to Adelaide City, never went to another Australian football club. It had something about it. And I think the culture was we were going to win things and we wanted to win things, and success was more than the dollars you could earn. Although dollars always was nice, but we never got paid that much at Adelaide City at all.
Yeah. And so maybe that's a marketplace thing, but it's also got to be a cultural thing. Playing for Zoran, obviously the committee, because a good club, it's not just the coach and the players. No. There are other things around it that sort of make that culture, all the way from the kit man to the kitchen to what happens behind the scenes. So tell us about what it was like being, because you were a one-man club, what that was like being around Adelaide City.
It's probably the best days of my football career, because think about this. We used to work back then as well. So you'd work, you'd be at work from 8:30 till 5. Then you'd go train 4 nights a week. Zoran would give us Thursday night off, because in Adelaide, Thursday night when we played was late night shopping night. So you could do your shopping.
Okay.
We'd even train on a Saturday before we played on a Sunday if we were playing at home. And if we weren't playing at home, we'd be traveling on the Saturday to play Sunday. So you got the people that you were with, they almost became like a second family.
Yeah.
So, and everybody respected each other. You knew everybody. You didn't see anybody for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you'd miss them. So it was very much that sort of like real family type club where everyone had time for each other. You saw each other that much that it was almost like family. It was a terrific place to be around. But what made it special, Sasha, was everybody really had the same sense of purpose, that they wanted to win. And they wanted to win championships, and championships was the most important thing. And when you've got a culture of winners, then you can't go wrong, because if one or two's having a little bit of a down game or down 45 minutes or down season, because we had seasons where, I was non-existent for a year, but they carried you through because there's how it worked. And a wonderful club to be around, well led. Volunteers were just there for volunteering and doing a really good job. So, and then they'd include the partners as well. And so my wife, Teresa, she's been there with me since 82, 83. And again, always made it feel welcome, even though it was an Italian club and we come from an Anglo and Australian background. It's very welcoming, and the people were wonderful.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. I mean, 300 plus games, 70 plus goals in season proper. And if you take together every other, practice game and whatever, a lot of goals and cup games and whatever, a lot of goals. So it wasn't too long before you win your first title. And from memory, the league was split into 2 hemispheres.
Yes.
So you had the southern hemisphere where the Melbourne clubs would play the Adelaide clubs, and for some strange reasons, the ones in Queensland as well. Let's work that out.
Yeah.
So we had Queensland, Victoria, and Adelaide in one group, and then you had the New South Wales contingent.
Newcastle, Wollongong, Canberra, Intaminaro, those, and all the Sydney clubs, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was 86 that you win your first title, and from memory, that year you beat out the team that I was following at the time, Footscray JUST, who also had a very good side.
Great team. Very good.
Probably the only year that they had some success, but you in the southern final, you just came out.
Olympic Park, we beat them.
You walloped that side. So, and then you go on to play Olympic in a 2-stage
grand final.
Grand final to play both. What was that like, that lead up? So 86, it's your first, you've already won the Southern title, you're going to now play for the national title, home and away legs. Talk to me about the lead up to that first grand final.
Yeah, it was really odd. We were never expected to win anything. Adelaide City had never won anything on the national stage. So we weren't expected to win. So we were underdogs, and all year. And even in the Southern Division, we actually came second in the 2 Footscray JUST, who actually came minor premiers that year. They had a fantastic side. And so we came second to them, and another good side was Brunswick Juventus that year as well. So all we were thinking of is, okay, how do we get this grand final and have another crack at Footscray? Because they'd won it and came top, and how do we beat them? How do we win this Southern Division grand final? We weren't even thinking national. Quite honestly, that was a different division. They were all the Sydney clubs, whatever. So we've gone through, and we've had a good run in the finals, and we've actually won this game at Olympic Park against Footscray. 3-2 it was. It was still a good game, tough game, but we got through and won quite well. What happened then is, of course, now we've come up to play against Sydney Olympic, who have done well in the Northern, and we're thinking, Sydney again, favourites, we're underdogs. There was no expectation on us to win. I think, Sasha, that made it a little bit easier for us. The benefit of hindsight, we didn't really realise at the time, but there was no sense of expectation. And then we went to High Marsh in the first leg at home, and playing on our home ground, and Sydney Olympic beat us 1-0.
Yes.
Well, back to the walls. Olympic thought they had won it. Manfred Schaefer was the coach. They had some really good players as well, Jennings and Vaskopoulos, Peter Katholis, Chris Galantis, as you would remember. Some really, really good players. Cody at the back. Meyer was in goals for them. They had a really good side.
Yeah. Star-studded.
Vincente Estavillo, who was probably one of the best foreigners in the country at the time, was playing for them as well. So we went then 1-0 down, second leg, away from home, Sydney, no expectation at all.
Oh, so wait, you were 1-0 down in that second leg as well?
Oh. No. Sorry. 1-0.
1-0 down after the first leg. Sorry.
After the first leg. So we go there, and everything is against us. But we knew as a team, we had some inner belief that, hey, we can beat this team, and we did. And we Steve Maxwell scored. Charlie Villani scored a terrific goal, and we were 3-0 up after
3-1 it finished, right? So
finished up 3-1 on aggregate. It finished, and that's right. So we did really, really well.
So it finished 3-1. So you put 3 in the first half.
We did. We scored three goals in the first half. Was it 2-0 at half time? Might have been 2-0 at half time. Third goal in the second. Yeah, third goal in the second half. It was the third goal. Went 3-0 up. Then they had Marshall Soper, who was sent off later in that half. And it was just our day, Sasha. It really was our day. They did actually get a late goal. I think Jennings, Johnston for Olympic that day. He might have scored a late consolation goal, but it was all over. We were never going to lose. And that was it, national champions.
Oh, so
first time ever.
There's something about being crowned national champions away from home. I'm sure that would have been a memorable night.
Well, coming back that night, we got a flight straight back. The airport was absolutely full. We can all remember just in recent times how Western Sydney Wanderers were greeted by their fans after winning the ACL in 2014 when they came back from Saudi. Okay, it wasn't that big, but it was big. There was a lot of people. We had limousines, big as up, took us down Harney Street, Main Street in Adelaide. It was something really, really special. It really was.
Oh, fantastic. So that was to then become, so you've ground out your first championship now, and so you didn't have to wait too long before you got some other silverware. So you obviously in '89, you guys did okay in the cup as well.
Yeah, we did. We won the cup again against Sydney Olympic. It was that game was at High Marsh Stadium. We won that game. Aurelio Vidmar scoring on that day. So we'd now won the championship, and now we've won a national cup. Although Adelaide City had a little bit of success in the cup in 1979, I think it was, where they beat, I think, St George in a final. But this was good as well. We won the cup then in 1989, and that was good. But then we had more championships to come after that as well.
What do you think was better in the Adelaide City side? Was it the offensive nature of Martich's side, or was it the fact that you guys had such a cohesive defence? Because this is something that I was speaking with Zoran with, and like, obviously I have my opinions about now watching, reflecting back, but was it the overall balance of the side, or where do you think your strengths lie in that side?
We always had good goalkeepers, very good goalkeepers. Started with Willie McNally in '86, but we had, Zabika, Petkovic after him. We've always had really good goalkeepers. And then in front of the goalkeepers, maybe what made them so good is that you had almost a Socceroo defence line. So I think defensively we had very strong team. And Zoran's, the way he coached is that I was a striker, but my first job, I was the first line of defence, and I had defensive duties just as much as a Tobin or a Navanovic or a Shilabir had as well. So I think that we were very, very strong defensively, and we were hard to score against, and we always had a little bit of flair, a little bit of speed from a Bellani or an Arella Bednar or a Maxwell that would score goals. It was very, very few occasions, Sasha, where we didn't score. And but I think it was built on a very good defensive approach.
So yeah, it's interesting that, you know, these ideas, these concepts of like a whole team press, etc. But you guys were doing something very similar, you know, even in the late 80s. That idea that you're going to defend as a defensive unit. His tactical methods revolved around when you had the ball, but did you also work on these defending as a team in training as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we did. And it was something that I never had really as a junior player. So, but definitely Zoran gave us jobs. We had jobs defensively, whether the ball was coming from their right fullback where we needed to be, their left fullback where we needed to be, where to slide, who was sliding, who would press, who would cover. Yeah, we used to go through all of that on the training ground, no doubt. But he also had team rules, and the team rules were, you know, some of them really silly, Sasha, whereby one, as an example, is if you got to the byline, he would prefer you just kick the ball out, because we're not going to score if we cut it back from the byline. Kick the ball out, at least that way we can all get behind the line of the ball again. This is true. This is just kick it out so we can all get back and defend properly. Because as soon as you cross it, either goalkeeper can come and pick it up, or if it gets cleared and we've committed players into the box, the crosser is out of the game and we're under pressure on the counter. So these were the little things. Don't shoot from outside the box. Silly, but particularly me, I was never allowed to shoot from outside the box. Why? Because maybe out of 10 times, I might get it on target, maybe 8, but no, my only score 1 in 20, and it wasn't enough percentage for him. So most players don't shoot from outside the box. Yeah, it was interesting rules.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are and like, would he pull
Don't
you up?
pass back to the goalkeeper. Don't pass back and you know, even then the goalkeeper
could pick up the ball.
Could pick up the ball.
Yeah.
Don't pass back the goalkeeper. You don't pass the ball back to the goalkeeper. We play. So, you know, there's 3 little examples that
one makes
very
sense.
odd.
That one makes sense to me. You want the ball in play. So, you know, it was almost negative. Some sides would get the ball and play it back to the goalkeeper as a way just to sort of churn down the clock, and it was negative to watch. But I mean, so Zoran obviously always wanted to play in an attractive way.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that Adelaide City was synonymous with, playing good football. You know, this European cosmopolitan style. So that one makes sense. But what would you do if you actually shot it? Would he blast you, or was he that type of coach? If you broke a team rule, would he berate you, or what would happen?
Well, I'll give you an example. Carviet's debut, we played away against Wollongong, and Carviet that day, he played the ball through from the halfway line, and he was onto it, and he played a 1-2 inside. I think it was to Maxi, who knocked it back, so he had now a little bit of space. He hit this ball from about 35 meters, and it was a wonderful goal. His debut goal.
So he scored.
He scored. Great goal. Comes in half time, and Zoran just gave it to him. You think you're going to score like that because he had a game, if he took an extra touch, he could have played Maxi back in, and Maxi was through 1-on-1 with the keeper. So this was an example.
He gave it to him. He gave it to him. Oh, wow.
He absolutely smashed him in front of everybody. And at first game, and I know how much it meant to Carvier, because I actually picked him up and took him to the airport that day, and on the way home after the weekend, took him back home. So he was talking about it in the car all the way home. But these are just rules. He would do it in a way to get a message across. But of course, there was probably some leniency with him as well. Came across as a very hard man, Zoran, but deep down, he's one of the most loveliest, kind-hearted people that you could meet.
Yes, and probably one of the most knowledgeable football brains in the country. We've now talked about a period of time where you also got to represent Australia, our country. So tell us about that time and how you got called up into camp.
I was in the camp probably for a couple of years, actually, 87 and 88 leading up into the Seoul Olympics. And of course, the Olympic team then was an open age team. It wasn't an under 23 team. So I was in camp. And back then, they had two camps. They had a northern camp for the Sydney-based and Brisbane-based players, and then they had a southern camp for the Victorian teams and the South Australian players. And I was involved in the camp for, good 18 months. In my time, during that time, Frank Arrett was the coach, Eddie Thompson was his assistant. I played twice for the national team, both B internationals. My debut was against Gothenburg in Sydney at Parramatta Stadium in the January of 88, I think it was. And only 4 or 5 days later, down in Melbourne, we played Dinamo Zagreb, and Arrett gave me my starting debut that night. He also brought me off with about 20 minutes to go. Actually, replaced me with Aurelio Vidmar, who got his debut for Australia that night.
Nice.
And in fact, it was his 21st birthday on the same day. And in fact, the Gothenburg game, myself and Alex Tobin both came off the bench that day, and that was Alex Tobin's debut for the national team as well. So the three of us were in that camp leading up to the Olympic Games. Unfortunately, with the Olympics, unfortunately for me, myself and Aurelio Vidmar were the last two that out of that whole squad that was training not to be selected to go. We got measured for all our suits and everything else, but we didn't go to the Olympics in Seoul. But they did very well. If you can remember, they beat Yugoslavia. Frank Farina had a wonderful tournament. John Kuzmina was in that side. They had a terrific Olympic team in 1988.
But you got to wear the green and gold, and what was it like standing there in line and with your 11 other boys and singing, listening to the national anthem?
National anthem. Yeah, just excellent. Just really was good. It made me feel
proud?
Very proud. Yeah, it really did. My problem, Sasha, with again the benefit of hindsight, looking back, is I was probably just happy to be a number in the squad, whereas, I'm a Socceroo and I don't, I've made it type thing, when really I look back and I should have been more ruthless. I should have wanted to be a starting 11 player. And I say to the players that I coach today, don't just want to be a number in this squad. Don't, as a team or a club, just be a number in the league. Let's be more than just a number. And when I look back, I probably should have played more times for the country, although there was some terrific strikers in my time, David Lowe, Rod Brown, Danny Wright, Frank Farina, who I mentioned, Stevie Maxwell, and then just that little bit older was Cosmina, Marshall Soper, just terrific players. And then, of course, Graham Arnold, Robbie Slater, were in the same age. So had a lot of stiff competition.
Yes, and the one thing about strikers is, it's not personal. If you're on fire, you're on fire, right? If you're scoring goals, that's the hardest thing. Yeah, that's the hardest thing. So any coach, shape, size, manner of play, it's almost irrelevant, right? The ball in the back of the net is really what counts, and so that's the opportunity of a centre forward that you have, and then other centre forwards have. So congratulations for those starts against Gothenburg and Dinamo Zagreb. So you didn't have to wait too much longer after that NSL Cup winning game against Sydney Olympic again to make another final, and this was in the 91-92 season. Now, when we've done away with this Southern and Northern league, and you come up against the powerhouse of the side, Marconi Stallions. So tell us about that year and what you remember of the lead up to that grand final.
Yeah. The 91-92 was actually Melbourne, Croatia, that one. The Marconi one came actually 93-94 season, but we played 3 in a row really because we did really well. And that first one against Melbourne, Croatia, it was an interesting one because they gave us a bit of a lesson in the first half. We ended up drawing that game 0-0, and then Sasha, it went to extra time, and we finished at 0-0. And it went to penalty kicks for this national grand final. It was played at Olympic Park, and again, you were right. It was a national competition, no northern, no southern, and it went to penalty kicks. Now, all week we've been practicing penalties, practicing penalties just in case, and it's come down to it. Well, all week those players that were taking penalty after penalty and scoring, it was easy. Came to the game. Came to penalties. Oh no, I don't. No, don't want to take one. Don't want to take one. I'd taken one during the week and I'd missed it. I was never good at penalties. Never took penalties. And I'm looking around, and we've only got 4 volunteers to take penalties. So I said, it would have been to the captain. I said, yeah, look, I'll take one, but make it the last one just in case you don't need me, right? Okay. Anyway, it came to the last one, and I needed to score. And if I scored, we won the championship. And I was bad. I was a poor penalty kick taker. I took one each night at training during the week. Robbie Zadig saved all of them. I'd even missed the target. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to run up. I'm just going to hit it as hard as I can, right down the middle. David Miller was in goal for Melbourne, Croatia. And as I'm running up, I'm gathering speed, and I've not closed my eyes, but I've just hit it straight, right down the guts. Dave Miller had dived and went in, and we won that grand final. So that was the second one that we'd won, which was fantastic.
Sorry, excuse my memory, because it was Marconi that you played the NSL Cup that you won in the same year. So okay,
as well, exactly right. So that was later,
yeah. So but what a Melbourne Knights side that they had, very, very strong.
They had obviously Marth, Hannah, Josip. They had Varnes. Remember?
Yes, what a
Varnes.
Strong man. Yes.
Damian Mori was actually in that team. Francis Waratipu was in that team. It was Stabber Marth was in that team. It was a really good Melbourne Croatia or Melbourne Knights side. Yeah. Of course, then after that, Mori came across from Melbourne Croatia and came across to Adelaide to play for us, and we played them the very next year in the same grand final at the same place. And Murray scored a bomb from about 35 metres out, and we won that grand final as well, 1-0.
Of the 3 grand finals, and we'll get to the last one, which one sort of sticks in your memory as the one? Because you had a couple of missteps there as well, right? So
yes, we did.
Couple got away from you, and maybe the one that probably hurt the most was when Knights came across in front of your home. And I'm only guessing, losing a grand final in front of home soil might be a hard one.
Yeah, we'll talk about the losing ones first. We lost 2. One was against Melbourne Knights at home, and it was in '95. It was our 4th grand final in a row. Adelaide's first time we played a grand final at home. We had the first leg against Olympic in '86, but this is the first one. It was a one-off final. They'd got extra stands up behind the goals to fit as many people into high march as they could, and they did. It was rocking. That night, and Zoran made us stay in a hotel in Adelaide. Come out of your bed, stay in a hotel that night in Adelaide. Try to do everything as professional as he could. The problem is the Croatian people knew we were staying in this hotel, and at 2 o'clock in the morning there was a bomb scare. We were staying on South Terrace, corner South Terrace, West Terrace in the hotel there, and that morning everybody out of their beds, 2 o'clock in the morning. Pajamas on the street.
Wow.
1 hour. And that was our preparation for the grand final the next day. So we lost that. We lost it at home, and we probably thought too much of the game, And to be honest, I mean, that was the side. They had Viduka. They had a really, really good side of Shansky. You would remember, wonderful player Zelko Artic. Again, Marth was in that side. Frank Juric.
Obviously Juric Gold. I interviewed Krešimir Mursic, who
yes, him,
quality,
wonderful,
absolute quality.
So we lost that one, which at home, of course, was hard to take. But the other one we lost was 2 years earlier against Marconi at Sydney. And that was a Marconi team that it was Mark Schwartz's last game in the country in Australia before he left for his overseas career. Mm-hmm. And I remember it well because they won with a penalty kick.
1-0, just one goal in it that game.
1-0, penalty kick. Steve Corica fell down in the box. Referee gave it as a trip. I actually went to tackle him, and I was on the floor. And at the time, the linesman said it was handball. It hit my hand. The ball hit my hand. Then the referee said, "No, you tripped him up." And I was just there, and he did fall over my hand. It was, in my opinion, never ever a penalty. But Andy Harper was the one that stepped up and took the penalty kick and scored, and they beat us 1-0. So that was a hard one to take as well.
So the ball did hit your hand. The ball did hit your hand.
No, the ball never hit my hand. Okay. But Corica's foot did hit my hand.
Okay.
I didn't grab it, but his foot did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he fell over and started playing on. He played on and got up and crossed the ball, or it was right on the goal line, right on the apex of the 18-yard line and goal line. So he was not in a scoring position, but the linesman waved his flag and referee pulled it up. And anyway, cut a long story short, we lost.
Cost you silverware. So
cost us a championship.
Obviously these are the moments, those sliding door moments that make you a hero or a villain in a game.
Villain.
So you're used to now, but this is the golden years of Adelaide City. If you're not winning a grand final, you're losing one. And we get to your final one in 93, 94. You get to play the Knights again. And Olympic Park, that was at Olympic Park. Okay. So I've got my years right.
You have.
Yeah. So what was that like? And that day.
Yeah, that was a game where against Croatia, and that's the game where Mori did score the blast from about 30 meters, and it didn't go to extra time. Good, terrific goal, and he loved it. It was his first year with us, of course. 2 years earlier, he'd been on the losing side against us at the same ground in the same grand final. So for him to score that goal was good for him, but terrific for the club as well. That gave us our third national championship, which was wonderful stuff. Melbourne was always a good home for Adelaide City. We always played well there, and we also had pretty good support. I think particularly the Brunswick Juventus supporters used to have a soft spot for Adelaide City, being same Italian type club, Juve, and we always felt very comfortable there. In fact, also the Footscray people used to have a soft spot for Adelaide City with the, I suppose, the Serbian connection with our coach Zoran Matic and that club as well. So it was. I used to enjoy playing in Melbourne myself. Fantastic stuff.
And you'd probably get a couple of thousand Adelaide boys come down as well to watch a grand final.
And finals, busloads. We used to have 7,000-8,000 people from Adelaide on those grand finals.
So of the three finals, which one does it stick? So is it number one, number two, or number three that's sort of most memorable?
Without any doubt, and they were all fantastic and had terrific teammates and all. But without doubt, it was the first one, 86. That was it was defining. It was defining for the club. It was defining for us as young players. That we could mix it with the big boys. And I've got my fondest memories are from that grand final win in 1986.
Okay, so we've talked about now that some of the serious parts of your time at Adelaide City, but I'm sure you would have had a laugh or two. So tell us, who are the characters that made the dressing room laugh?
Yeah, yeah. Look, no doubt. Steve Maxwell was one of those. Very, very, very funny. Good, terrific fella. Aurelio Vidma and Charlie Villani, the two Italians. Whenever they used to travel, always playing the little Italian card games, and
Yes.
they were good, really good fun people to have around. And then, of course, in the early days, we had what we call the British Mafia, and the British Mafia were people like Neil Banfield,
Okay.
Willie McNally, Neville Flounders. These were real, true professional footballers that were, playing with us, but real broad speaking English, a little bit older than us. And the one that probably sticks out that used to everybody had a lot of respect for was our Captain Serge Melter.
Yes.
Just went about his job, very quiet, humble, played with real intense and purpose and
What
endeavour.
an engine. That man could run all day.
Yeah.
He could play two games after each other, no problem, I'm sure.
Yeah, so everybody looked up to him. And if Serge said something, you listened.
Okay.
As did his predecessor as captain, Bugsy Nisselhorst. He said something, you listened. But in terms of character around the dressing room, I think it was Steve Maxwell, Charlie Villani, those two in particular.
So, care to mention any of the stories that you can tell us?
Well, like I said, I roomed with Maxie for all of my playing career, and I used to have a bit of a running joke with him because he'd commentate about his game after, Joe, remember that I played well, remember that shot I had, remember this, and I used to seriously bring a little, in those days, a cassette with me, cassette recorder, and on the cassette recorder I'd pre-recorded just saying, yes, Maxie, and making out I'm asleep. Yes, Maxie. Oh, you were good there, Maxie. And I'll just play it. And he'd be talking, thinking that I was asleep and awake, and I'm playing the cassette tape. So some terrific stories with Maxie. We had one really, really good night, a night we always refer to. He played Sydney Olympic in a final in Sydney. It was to go into a grand final. I think it was to go into the grand final. We eventually lost actually to the Marconi game. 1993, and we were walking wounded. Carvier ended up scoring a goal in extra time that day to put us through to the grand final. And I remember him going around Andy Burnell at the time, who was a good player, of course, and Carl scored a terrific goal. He had a quad injury or a hamstring injury, but he played on. That night, Zoran, who never ever let you go out, never ever let you drink, he said, boys, if you want to go out, you can go out tonight, but be sensible. Well, me and Maxie never went out that night. We stayed at the hotel. We went up to the 6th floor, which was where the spa was and the swimming pool. And we got a bottle of scotch. We got a couple of cigars, and we just stayed in there. And I can tell you now to this day, and I only had lunch with Maxie the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, he's still got that bottle of scotch. He's still got about that much left in it, and it sits on his mantelpiece at home. So some terrific memories. And as the boys started coming back from their night out, they'd come and join us in the swimming pool that night. It was just, that was football for me. That was what I call great times.
Oh, that's a great story. The fact that he still got that remaining little bit in the scotch bottle.
He's still got it there.
It's testament to the conversation that you would have had, and probably a culmination or symbolism of all the conversations that you had with Steve over your journey. There's a couple of players that I mean, so that whole side was quality, right? But there's a couple of players that I really want to touch base about. One is an import. Who came from the old Yugoslavia and ended up playing for Australia, Milan Ivanovic. Tell us what he, because you guys had a great backline already, but tell us what it was like when you get somebody from the ilk of Ivanovic from Red Star to come across to Adelaide City. Did you know that there was something special about him from the first training session that he came on board, or do you know even before he was going to come that he was going to be good? What was he like?
Didn't know what to expect, to be honest. And the first game he played for us was at home against Marconi. and he was drawn out of position. The ball went out for a throw in our defensive half, and he was just out of position, and he picked up the ball to throw it in. Well, you remember Zlatko Nastevsky for Marconi. Yes. In their language, he called out, throw it to me. And so Milan just turned and threw it to Nastevsky, who was playing for Marconi at the time. And Nastevsky went through one-on-one and scored. And I'm thinking, who is this guy that we have got, really? And that was his first game at home against High against Marconi, threw the ball straight to Nastevsky. But that aside, this player, Milan Ivanovic, the best of. We talk about players might not have speed, but they've got speed of thought, speed of anticipation.
Yeah.
He had that in bucket loads, but he had the speed to go with it. He was deceptively quick, and he had such a football brain. He could almost see what was going to happen one step in front, and he was very quiet and unassuming on the pitch. But he had that little bit of nastiness in him as well. And I mean that in a nice way. Nastiness as though that's the ball. I'm going to do everything I can to go and get that ball. If it means I've got to go through somebody to do it, he'll do it. But he was technically outstanding.
Yeah, so that's what I remember of his, not only his time at Adelaide City, but obviously in the Socceroo squad, the anticipation, what we call football intelligence. It's something really hard to teach. And some people have got it. Some people have got it in spades, and he's one player that I think his football intelligence was sort of, sort of like university level playing against high school. That would be the difference of players. Was he hard, because you would have been up against him at training a lot? Was he hard to win the ball off when he was marking you? Yeah,
absolutely. He was very good with the ball at his feet, so he was a clever player. So he could have played higher up the ground. He was more comfortable at the back, of course, but he was good with the ball at his feet. But he was even better when he didn't have the ball, with what he was doing and how he'd positioned himself. Very, very difficult to get the ball off, and very difficult to get around those big, long legs. I remember them. He was world class, the best player that I've ever seen in Australia. I mean, there's been some good ones as well. I mean, we talked today in the A-League about Castro, about Ninkovic. We talk about in the same era as Milan, Zarko Jarkov, who was a fantastic player as well, and Rosic for Sydney United or Sydney Croatia. Some great players, but Milan was equal to, if not better.
Yeah, so I would concur with your assessment of him. Definitely in the back line of an Australian squad, definitely deserving of one of those greatest imports in that back line.
In fact, I think if he played in the national team the night that Venables didn't play him against Iran at the MCG when we drew that game and went out of the World Cup, I think he would have, no disrespect against Horvath, who was a wonderful club player and national team player as well, but I think Milan would have probably just stepped off at that point. You can remember when it was played through.
We got caught out. Yep.
I think knowing Milan, he probably wouldn't have been caught so square. Again, it's hindsight, easy to say, but I think we could have gone to a different World Cup.
Yeah, so I cried that night. So thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
We've had, and the one other player who came to you, and you've mentioned his name, who super explosive player, Damian Mori, who came to your squad. Obviously, you only played a short time with him, but also went on to have a fantastic career with Adelaide City and then with other clubs afterward, Perth Glory, etc. So what was he like because to me, I think there was one game, I don't know if you were still in the squad, where there was a kickoff and he just pinged the ball from halfway line. And
I was definitely there, and he turned to me and he said, Bradley Hassel and him were over the ball, It was the start of the game. We're playing Sydney United. John Perrin was actually coaching us. So Zoran wasn't coaching us at the time. John Perrin was the coach.
Hey, that's why the rule didn't apply. The shooting outside the box didn't apply. Yeah.
But John was very much like Zoran. And Damian turned around to me, and I was sitting like in the number 10 position. He goes, Molesy, he said, look where Carew is. Carew was the goalkeeper for Sydney.
He's off his line.
He said, he's off his line. And I actually said to him, go on, hit it, wink it. And thinking, he's going to hit it. And that'll take the attention of me off at half time if I'm having a nightmare, because John will go, well, what are you doing kicking the ball from the halfway line? So I said, yeah, go on, hit it. So Bradley Hassel touched it to him, he hit it, and it went in. It was 3.76 seconds. And we still hear about that today every time. Damien is now my golfing partner. We see each other 2-3 times a week, and he doesn't let you forget about that one.
But such an explosive player. Obviously, that goal stood as a world record for many, many years. I think it was just recently broken. But fantastic. I mean, just the idea to hit the ball from halfway line. Obviously, you always encouraged him. Yeah. It's one thing to talk about it at the centre circle. Another thing to say, I'm going to ping it, and it was a rocket.
Yeah. And, just went straight in. Went like his 4-iron. It just bang, just straight, and didn't move. And full credit to him. He had the audacity to try it, to do it, saw it, and he meant everything that he was doing. So he was a good player for us. He had absolute power. Yeah. Like I said, in his quads, in his mid region, he was very quick. He was strong. Yeah. And what he had a real nose for goal. And the nose for goal said, if anyone's in my way, he doesn't care. They're going to get out of my way. And that's what he was like. He was like a bulldog.
Yeah, so quick and so explosive quick in a way, yeah? So, so big career, spanning close to across 2 decades. And you would have had many fond memories. Your time at Adelaide City, we spoke about some. And after you retired, did you take up they asked you to stick around and help out coaching?
Yeah, that's right. So John Perrin brought me to the club at the back end of 1982. Yep. And it was John who was coaching when I retired in 1995. And he's the one who said, Joe, I'm going to go with youngsters halfway through the season. Made perfect sense to me. And he said, but what I want you to do is coach our state league side, which was a young team, but they played in the state league 2, which was the 2nd division. Yep. And you start training tomorrow night. So I went straight from playing, and I went coaching the very next night, and I took our young team and stayed in coaching ever since. So I've had some time at Adelaide City. Then I went to be an assistant coach under John Niskos in the NSL team before Zoran came back from his days in Sydney when he was at Marconi. And I was his assistant until I went with work, AGC Finance, to live in Melbourne for 5 years. And when I went across there, I was fortunate enough to coach the old Brunswick Defenders, or Bulleen, they were called Bulleen Zebras. Yep. Had 4 years with that terrific club out at the Veneto club there. Yep. And terrific people, terrific club. And then I had my last year in Melbourne, I went to Green Gully and had a year with Green Gully where we won the Dockerty Cup and came top of the league. We didn't actually get to the grand final that year. We went out on penalty kicks against Altona Magic in the prelim final. But we had some terrific times in Melbourne as a coach. Came back to Adelaide and as coached. Again, I was the inaugural national youth team coach for Adelaide United in the National Youth League before taking on a role with Campbelltown in the National Premier League, where I've been for the last 7 years, before having my first year off last year. Me and my wife were going to Europe for 8 weeks, and with COVID, that all fell in the heap anyway. So I've got back into coaching now, and I'm assisting Adrian Stenter with the Adelaide United W League team, which is just a wonderful competition, and it's opened my eyes up to what these female footballers can do. Technically terrific, want to listen, want to learn, and it is an excellent competition.
So we're talking about, 50 plus years of giving your life to football, either playing or coaching. Obviously formed a big part of your life. What advice would you give to, let's say we're talking now to this 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old boy or girl? What advice would you give to those individuals that want to take it to that next level?
I would say number one is enjoy your football. And if for whatever reason you're not enjoying any particular aspect of it, get enjoying that part of that game, whether it's through something you've been asked to do, something you don't enjoy doing, some weakness in your game, and work on it. Fix that root cause, because for you to be successful, you need to be able to enjoy the game at all levels. When you're on the ground, when you're off the ground, when you're around your mates, it's not all consuming. So my advice is enjoy your football, and that there's, I think, the best you can do. And look to improve those areas where it's not giving you the joy that you expect it to.
Yeah, the wise advice. Sometimes it's so simple as, love what you do. So that's
and people say, yeah, I love the game, but they get angry, and because something hasn't gone wrong, it hasn't gone right. Might be a coach's decision, might be a refereeing decision, their teammate didn't give them the ball. Well, don't get angry. Try to fix that part of your game and channel all of your endeavour, enthusiasm, commitment, will, want, desire into those areas that will make you love that part of the game even more so.
What a fantastic words of wisdom from somebody who got to play at the highest possible level in this country, represented our country both in youth and international career. Any last words, Joe, that you have to say to the Australian football public?
All I would say is, and people say to me, the game owes you so much. Totally disagree. I owe so much to this great game of ours. The people that I've met through the game, the friendships that I've had through the game, the association I have with clubs that I used to hate when I played against them. I can see now just what work effort that they've done to get to where they are. I'm talking about, we were at Marconi with the women's team last year, just looking at that club where it's got to. Melbourne club's the same. The game owes me nothing. I owe this game so much. And I think if everyone thinks like that, and it took me a while to realise it, but if everyone thinks like that, what we can do for our game, and all work in the same channel of improving it, then this game in Australia would be even a lot more better off, I think.
Joe Mullen, it's been an absolute honour, sir, and an absolute privilege to speak with you tonight. So we wish you all the very best, and thank you so much for your continued contribution to Australian football.
Yeah, thank you, Sasha. It's been a pleasure speaking to you as well.
Hey, guys, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our wonderful guest. If you like this type of content and would like to see more, how about you hit the like and subscribe button? And have a fantastic day.